The silver ship fell from the sky like a dying star. Inside, Zara fought with the controls as warning lights flashed red across her console. Her six-fingered hands moved quickly over the panel, but it was no use. The ship was going to crash. "Emergency landing protocols engaged," said the ship's computer in the musical language of her people. Zara's silver skin reflected the blinking lights as she braced for impact. The celestial whisper, once the pride of the Avelian scout fleet, tore through Earth's atmosphere. Trees snapped like twigs as the ship carved a deep path through the Amazon jungle. Metal screamed against wood and earth until finally the ship came to rest in a muddy clearing. Silence fell. Then the hiss of a door opening. Zara stepped out into Earth's air for the first time. It felt thick and wet in her lungs. Strange sounds filled her pointed ears. Calls of animals, the rustle of leaves, water dripping from countless plants. On her world, environments were controlled, clean, predictable. This place was chaos. She touched the communicator on her wrist. "Commander Zara Kilthrix, the scout ship Celestial Whisper. Emergency landing on observation planet Earth. Ship damaged. Requesting extraction." The message would take days to reach her people. Until then, she was alone. A warning beep from her suit made her look down. The ship's quantum core was leaking radiation. Not enough to harm her, protected as she was by her suit, but enough to affect the local wildlife. She needed to fix it quickly. 50 miles away, Dr. Olivia Winters stared at her computer screen. The satellite feed showed an unusual energy spike in a remote part of the jungle. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. The energy signature matched nothing in Earth's scientific records. "We need to check it out," she told her team. "This could be it. The proof we've been looking for." Her superior, Dr. Grayson, shook his head. "It's probably just a meteorite, Olivia. Not worth the risk, and if it's not," Olivia challenged. Her whole career had been building to this moment. Years of being mocked by her colleagues for believing an extraterrestrial life could finally end. Grayson sighed. "Fine, take a small team. But if you find nothing in 3 days, you come back. Understood?" Olivia nodded, already planning who to bring. Morgan Kelly, their best tracker, would be essential. The former soldier had skills no one else at the research station could match. Samantha Reed, the linguistic genius who could decode patterns in any form of communication. And for protection, Paige Donovan, whose skepticism would keep them grounded. Within hours, they were in a helicopter flying over the endless green canopy of the Amazon. "The signal is strongest here," Olivia shouted over the noise of the rotors. "We'll have to continue on foot." Morgan nodded, studying the terrain. "There's a clearing 2 miles east. We can land there." As the helicopter touched down, none of them noticed the pair of golden eyes watching from the undergrowth. The creature known to locals as the Shadow Jaguar had been hunting in these parts for generations. Twice the size of a normal jaguar, its black fur seemed to swallow light rather than reflect it. Lately, it had been changing. Growing smarter, hungrier, the strange new energy in its hunting grounds called to it. The Shadow Jaguar followed the pull, drawn to something it didn't understand but somehow recognized. Back at the crash site, Zara examined the damage to her ship. The outer hull was dented but intact. The propulsion system was beyond repair with the tools she had. But worst of all was the quantum core. Cracks had formed in its containment chamber, letting dangerous particles leak into the environment. On her home planet, such a breach would trigger an immediate evacuation of the area. Here, she could only try to contain it and hope her distress signal would bring help before too much damage was done. Night fell quickly in the jungle. Zara worked by the light of her ship's emergency beacons, trying to patch the core chamber with materials from the ship's repair kit. A noise in the bushes made her freeze. She reached for her energy weapon, pointing it toward the sound. A small furry creature scurried away. Zara relaxed slightly but remained alert. Her people had studied Earth for decades. They knew humans were primitive compared to Avelians, but the planet's wildlife could be dangerous. Miles away, Olivia's team made camp for the night. They had hiked through dense jungle all afternoon, following the energy readings that grew stronger with each step. "We should reach the source by midday tomorrow," Olivia said, studying her equipment. "The radiation levels are increasing. Whatever it is, it's leaking something." Morgan sat nearby, cleaning her rifle. "We're being watched," she said quietly. "By what?" Samantha asked, looking nervous. "Not sure yet," Morgan replied. "But something big has been tracking us since we landed." Paige checked her own weapon. "Probably just a curious jaguar. They usually avoid humans. Let's take turns keeping watch tonight, Olivia suggested. I'll go first. As the others settled into their tents, Olivia stared into the darkness beyond their campfire. The jungle was alive with sounds. Insects chirping, frogs calling, leaves rustling. But underneath it all was a strange hum, just at the edge of hearing. Something that didn't belong. In her ship, Zara felt it too. The quantum particles were interacting with Earth's environment in ways she hadn't predicted. She used her scanner to check the surrounding area and was alarmed to see unusual readings from the local wildlife. The radiation was affecting them already, accelerating changes that should take generations. And somewhere between the stranded alien and the human explorers, the shadow jaguar prowled. It could sense both groups now. The strange silver being smelled wrong, not of Earth. The humans were familiar prey, though something about them was different from the villagers it usually avoided. The jaguar's mind was changing too. New thoughts formed where once there had been only instinct. It understood now that the silver being and the new energy were connected. It felt drawn to both, compelled by something beyond hunger. As the first hints of dawn colored the eastern sky, the shadow jaguar made its decision. The humans were closer. It would start with them. Paige Donovan took the final watch shift. Tired after a restless night, she walked the perimeter of their small camp, coffee in one hand, pistol in the other. The jungle was quieter now, as if holding its breath. She never saw the shadow jaguar coming. One moment she was alone, the next a massive black shape exploded from the undergrowth. Her scream echoed through the trees as the creature dragged her into the darkness. Zara heard the human cry. But more than that, she felt the predator's thoughts. A jumble of hunger, curiosity, and something unexpected. Growing intelligence. The radiation from her ship was changing it, making it more than nature intended. For the first time since crashing on this planet, Zara felt real fear. Not for herself, but for what she might have unleashed on this world. Morning light filtered through the jungle canopy. Morgan was the first to realize something was wrong. Paige's tent was empty, her sleeping bag torn open. Outside, deep tracks in the mud told the story. Something took her, Morgan said, kneeling to examine the prints. Something big. Olivia and Samantha gathered around. The tracks were unmistakable. A jaguar, but larger than any they had seen before. We need to find her, Olivia said, her voice tight with worry. Morgan nodded. I can track it, but we need to move fast. They packed quickly, leaving behind anything that wasn't essential. Morgan led the way, following the trail of broken branches and disturbed earth. The jaguar had dragged Paige deeper into the jungle, away from their planned route. The energy readings are stronger in this direction anyway, Olivia noted, checking her scanner. Maybe there's a connection. 2 miles away, Zara worked frantically to contain the radiation from her ship's core. The temporary patches she had applied were holding, but they wouldn't last. She needed better materials, and her knowledge of Earth's resources was limited. A noise outside made her pause. Something was approaching her ship, something large. Zara grabbed her energy weapon and moved to the entrance. Through the trees came 3 humans, 2 females and one with shorter hair who moved with the confidence of a warrior. They hadn't seen her yet, too focused on the tracks they were following. Zara ducked back inside her ship. Humans weren't supposed to discover Avelians yet. Her people had been watching Earth for decades, studying its inhabitants from a distance. Direct contact was forbidden, but the radiation leak changed everything. If these humans were exposed, they could be harmed. And if they found her ship, Zara made a decision. She would observe them first, assess their intentions. If necessary, she could use her ship's memory alteration device to make them forget the encounter. It wasn't perfect, but it might be enough. Morgan stopped suddenly, raising her hand for the others to halt. The tracks change here, she said. It stopped dragging Paige and started carrying her. That's not normal jaguar behavior. Samantha looked around nervously. Nothing about this feels normal. Olivia checked her scanner again. We're getting close to the energy source. It's just ahead through those trees. Morgan readied her rifle. Stay behind me. They moved forward cautiously. The jungle thinned out, revealing a small clearing. In the center sat Zara's ship, half buried in mud, vines already beginning to grow over its silver hull. Oh my God, Olivia whispered. It's real. An actual spacecraft. Morgan kept her rifle raised, scanning the area. Where's Paige? And where's the pilot? Samantha added. Inside the ship, Zara watched them through the view screen. They hadn't found their missing companion, which concerned her. If the predator that took the human had been affected by the radiation, it might be more dangerous than she thought. Morgan noticed a faint blue glow coming from the vines growing on the ship. Those plants aren't normal, she said, approaching carefully. They're changing. Before Olivia could stop her, Morgan touched one of the vines. It pulsed with light at her touch, and Morgan jerked her hand back. It's warm, and it feels alive in a way I can't explain. A sudden growl from the jungle made them all freeze. The shadow jaguar emerged from the trees, its black fur making it look like a hole in the world. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural blue light, the same color as the vines on the ship. Don't move, Morgan whispered. Don't run. It will chase you if you run. The jaguar watched them, head low, muscles tensed to spring, but it didn't attack. Instead, it seemed to be studying them, its eyes too intelligent for a normal animal. Inside the ship, Zara made another decision. These humans were in danger because of her. She couldn't hide anymore. Taking a deep breath of filtered air from her suit, she stepped out of the ship. The humans turned at the sound of the door opening. Their eyes widened at the sight of Zara, her silver skin, her six-fingered hands, her large iridescent eyes. The jaguar growled again, but it wasn't looking at the humans anymore. Its attention was fixed on Zara. It could sense the connection between her and the energy that had been changing it. Don't shoot, Olivia said quickly, as Morgan raised her rifle. It's not attacking. Zara raised her empty hands slowly, showing she meant no harm. She couldn't speak their language, but she could project simple emotions telepathically. She sent feelings of peace, of concern, of a desire to help. Olivia felt it first. A gentle pressure in her mind, not words exactly, but understanding. She's trying to communicate, she said. The jaguar felt it too. It took a step back, confused by the unfamiliar presence in its mind. For a moment, the clearing was perfectly still. 3 humans, 1 alien and a mutated predator all watching each other, waiting to see who would move first. Morgan slowly lowered her rifle, never taking her eyes off the jaguar. Where's Paige? She asked. Zara couldn't understand the words, but she caught the image in Morgan's mind, the missing human. She pointed to the jaguar and then to the jungle, trying to convey that the predator knew where their friend was. It took her, Samantha realized. But why isn't it attacking us now? Because something bigger is happening, Olivia said, looking from Zara to the jaguar to the glowing vines. Everything is connected. The ship, the radiation, the jaguar. Zara pointed to her ship, then made a gesture like something breaking, followed by her hands spreading outward. She was trying to explain about the radiation leak. I think she's saying her ship is damaged, Olivia guessed, and it's affecting things around it. The jaguar took another step back, then turned and disappeared into the jungle. Morgan started to follow, but Olivia caught her arm. Wait. We need to understand what's happening first. Using gestures and simple drawings in the dirt, they began the slow process of establishing communication with Zara. Samantha's linguistic skills proved valuable as she recognized patterns in Zara's attempts to convey information. By midday, they had established some basic facts. Zara was from a place far away. Her ship was damaged. Something was leaking from it that was dangerous. The jaguar had been changed by this leaking thing. And yes, it had taken their friend Paige. We need to find Paige, Morgan insisted, before it's too late. Zara seemed to understand. She pointed to herself, then to her ship, making repair motions. Then she pointed to the humans and the direction the jaguar had gone. I think she's saying she needs to fix her ship while we look for Paige, Samantha translated. Olivia shook her head. We shouldn't split up. It's too dangerous, Zara tried again, this time pointing to the glowing vines, then to the jungle, then making a sweeping gesture to indicate the problem was spreading. The radiation is affecting more than just the jaguar, Olivia realized. It's changing the plants, maybe other animals too. She needs to stop it. Morgan checked her ammunition. Then we have 2 missions. Find Paige and help her fix the ship. Zara nodded, understanding their intent if not their exact words. She went back into her ship and returned with several small devices. She handed one to Olivia, a scanner of some kind that showed the radiation levels. Through more gestures and drawings, Zara explained that they needed to find all the pieces of the core that had scattered during the crash. Some had been picked up by animals, including the shadow jaguar. That's why it was changing, becoming more intelligent. So Paige might still be alive, Samantha said hopefully. If the jaguar is getting smarter, maybe it's not just hunting for food anymore. Or maybe it's something worse than hungry, Morgan warned. Smart predators are the most dangerous kind. As the day wore on, they developed a plan. Morgan would track the jaguar, hoping to find Paige. Olivia would help Zara collect the scattered core fragments using the scanner. Samantha would stay at the ship, working on better communication methods. Before they separated, Zara gave each of them a small device to wear on their wrists. She demonstrated that it would help protect them from the radiation, though it wasn't perfect. "Be careful," Olivia told Morgan. "That's not a normal jaguar anymore." Morgan nodded grimly. "Nothing about this is normal. But I've tracked predators before. Smart or not, it still leaves signs." As Morgan disappeared into the jungle, following the jaguar's trail, Olivia turned to Zara. The alien woman was already scanning the area, looking for radiation signatures. Samantha sat cross-legged near the ship, filling her notebook with symbols and drawings, trying to build a translation system. "This is history in the making," she said, excitement overcoming her fear. The first contact with an alien species. What none of them realized was that the shadow jaguar was watching from the dense foliage nearby. Its mind, enhanced by the radiation, was working in new ways. It understood now that these creatures were trying to take away the power that had awakened it, and it had no intention of letting that happen. Deep in a cave system half a mile away, Paige Donovan lay unconscious but alive. Around her, other changed animals had gathered. Birds with glowing eyes, monkeys that moved with unnatural coordination, even insects that formed complex patterns in the air. The jaguar had not brought her here to eat. It had brought her as an example, a specimen to study. The jungle was changing, and the change was spreading faster than anyone realized. Morgan moved through the jungle like a ghost. Her steps were silent, her eyes constantly scanning the ground for tracks and the trees for signs of movement. The shadow jaguar was clever, but it still left traces. A broken twig here, a tuft of fur there, occasional paw prints in the soft earth. The trail led deeper into the jungle, toward a series of rocky hills. Morgan had heard stories about these hills from the local guides at the research station. They spoke of ancient ruins, places where their ancestors had worshipped strange gods from the stars. She had dismissed the tales as superstition. Now she wasn't so sure. Meanwhile, Olivia and Zara searched for scattered fragments of the ship's core. The alien scanner beeped softly as they approached anything with traces of radiation. They found small glowing pieces embedded in trees, buried in the ground, and even inside the body of a dead snake whose scales had turned an unnatural blue. "This is worse than I thought," Olivia said, carefully placing another fragment in the lead-lined container Zara had provided. "How far has this spread?" Zara couldn't answer in words, but her worried expression said enough. They had collected 7 fragments so far, but according to the scanner, there were many more. Back at the ship, Samantha was making progress with communication. She had created a simple picture dictionary, drawing objects and actions for Zara to match with her own language. It was slow work, but gradually they were building a bridge between their worlds. During a break, Samantha explored the outside of the ship, making detailed notes about its design. The metal wasn't like anything she had seen before. It seemed to shift slightly under direct sunlight, almost like it was breathing. She was so focused on her observations that she didn't notice the rustling in the undergrowth until it was almost too late. A group of monkeys emerged from the trees, their eyes glowing with the same blue light as the jaguars. They moved with strange coordination, not like normal monkeys at all. Samantha backed away slowly, reaching for the communication device Zara had given her. Before she could activate it, the monkeys charged. She turned to run, but tripped over a vine that seemed to wrap around her ankle of its own accord. Her scream echoed through the jungle. Miles away, Morgan heard the cry. It was faint, but the jungle carried sounds in strange ways. She hesitated, torn between continuing to follow the jaguar's trail and heading back to help Samantha. Before she could decide, a flash of movement caught her eye. The shadow jaguar stood on a rock outcropping above her, watching. Its blue eyes seemed to glow brighter in the shadows. Morgan raised her rifle slowly but didn't fire. Something about the way the jaguar was looking at her made her pause. It wasn't crouched to spring. It wasn't showing its teeth. It was just watching. "Where is she?" Morgan asked, knowing the animal couldn't understand her words but hoping her tone would convey her meaning. "Where's Paige?" To her shock, the jaguar turned and walked away, pausing to look back at her as if expecting her to follow. Olivia and Zara heard Samantha's scream too. They raced back toward the ship, Zara's silver skin flashing in patches of sunlight as they ran. When they arrived, they found Samantha climbing down from a tree, shaken but unhurt. "The monkeys," she gasped. "They were changed like the jaguar. They attacked me but then just stopped, like they got new orders." Zara examined the surrounding area with her scanner. The radiation levels were increasing. Whatever was controlling the animals was getting stronger. Using their improvised communication system, Zara explained that the radiation wasn't just changing individual animals. It was creating a network, linking them together into something like a hive mind. And something was directing that network. The jaguar, Olivia guessed. Zara shook her head and pointed to her scanner. There was a much larger concentration of radiation in the direction Morgan had gone, toward the hills. Morgan was following the shadow jaguar, keeping a safe distance. The great cat led her along a winding path that seemed intentionally chosen to be easy for her to traverse. Whenever she fell too far behind, it would stop and wait, those intelligent blue eyes watching her with what almost seemed like impatience. The path led to the base of the largest hill, where stone steps cut into the rock led upward. The steps were ancient, worn smooth by centuries of use, but they were definitely man-made. The jaguar bounded up the steps. Morgan hesitated, then followed. The climb was steep, the jungle heat making sweat pour down her face. Near the top, the trees thinned out, giving her a view of what lay ahead. It was a temple, or what remained of one. Stone pillars carved with symbols she didn't recognize. A central altar made of a material that gleamed oddly in the sunlight. Not quite stone, not quite metal. And everywhere, the blue vines pulsing with energy. The shadow jaguar stood in the center of the temple, waiting. And beside it, lying unconscious on a bed of leaves, was Paige. Morgan approached cautiously, rifle ready. Paige was breathing, her chest rising and falling steadily. She didn't appear to be injured, just unconscious. The jaguar made no move to stop Morgan as she checked Paige's pulse. It was strong and regular. Whatever the animal's purpose in bringing her here, it hadn't been to harm her. "Why?" Morgan asked, looking directly at the jaguar. "Why bring her here? Why show me?" The jaguar couldn't answer, of course, but it moved to the central altar and placed one massive paw on its surface. The altar began to glow with the same blue light as the jaguar's eyes. Morgan felt a strange sensation, like fingers gently probing her mind. Not painful, but unsettling. Images flashed through her thoughts. Stars, ships like Zara's but larger, beings with silver skin walking among humans who bowed before them. And beneath it all, a hunger, a desire to grow, to spread, to become more than what it was. Morgan stumbled back, breaking the connection. The jaguar watched her, head tilted as if curious about her reaction. "You want to communicate?" Morgan realized. "You're trying to show me something." Back at the ship, Zara had managed to explain more of the situation to Olivia and Samantha. The temple Morgan was heading toward wasn't just a human structure. It had been built around something much older, a scout ship like hers that had crashed thousands of years ago. Humans had found it, and not understanding what it was, had built a temple around it. They had worshipped the technology as divine gifts. And over centuries, the ship's core had leaked tiny amounts of radiation, not enough to notice, but enough to subtly influence the development of the local wildlife. Zara's crash had accelerated the process exponentially. The old radiation and the new had combined, creating something neither her people nor Earth was prepared for. "We need to find Morgan," Olivia said, "and Paige. Then we need to neutralize both radiation sources." Zara nodded her agreement. According to her calculations, they had less than a day before the radiation reached levels that would cause permanent changes to the jungle ecosystem. They gathered what equipment they could carry and set off toward the hills, following the signal on Zara's scanner. The jungle seemed different now, quieter, as if the animals were hiding, or watching. Morgan had managed to wake Paige, who was confused but otherwise okay. "The jaguar," Paige said, her voice hoarse. "It didn't hurt me. It just carried me here and then left me alone." I think it was studying me. It's changed, Morgan told her. The radiation from the ship, it's made it smarter. And it's trying to communicate. Paige looked around at the temple, her scientist's mind taking in the strange symbols, the altar, the blue vines. This place is old. Really old. But those vines are new, Morgan nodded. I think something's been here a long time. Something like Zara's ship. And now it's waking up. The shadow jaguar had retreated to the edge of the temple, watching them but making no hostile moves. Other animals had gathered too. The monkeys Samantha had encountered, birds with glowing eyes, even insects that formed patterns in the air like living symbols. It's building an army, Paige said. Or a community. I'm not sure it knows the difference yet. Morgan checked her rifle again. We need to get back to the others. Warn them. But as they turned to leave, the animals moved to block their path. Not attacking, just preventing them from leaving. The jaguar approached again, its movements almost gentle for such a powerful predator. It stopped in front of Morgan and sat, looking up at her with those intelligent blue eyes. Then it lay down, exposing its throat in a gesture of submission that went against every natural instinct a predator should have. I think, Paige said slowly, it wants your help. Before Morgan could respond, they heard voices calling from the steps leading up to the temple. Olivia, Samantha, and Zara appeared out of breath from the climb. Their reunion was brief but joyful. Paige assured them she was unharmed, while Morgan explained what she had discovered about the temple and the jaguar's strange behavior. Zara examined the altar with her scanner, her expression growing more concerned. Through their improvised communication system, she explained that this was indeed an ancient Avelian ship, but it was broadcasting a distress signal, not to her people but to something else, something older and more dangerous. The radiation wasn't just changing the local wildlife, it was preparing Earth for visitors, like terraforming, Olivia realized, changing the environment to suit whoever's coming. 3 months had passed since the night in the jungle. The Avelian ships had taken away all traces of their technology, carefully removing both Zara's crashed vessel and the ancient temple ship. They had cleaned up the radiation, though they couldn't reverse the changes it had already caused. Morgan sat on the porch of her small cabin at the edge of the research station, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. The air was heavy with the scent of rain. Another tropical storm was coming. Movement at the edge of the trees caught her eye. The shadow jaguar emerged from the jungle, its black coat gleaming in the fading light. Its eyes still held that strange blue glow, though fainter now than before. It walked across the open ground with no attempt to hide, heading straight for Morgan's cabin. This had become their routine over the past months. The jaguar would visit every few days, sometimes staying for hours, sometimes just long enough to check on her before disappearing back into the green depths of its home. Hello, friend, Morgan said softly as the great cat climbed the steps to her porch. It rubbed its massive head against her outstretched hand, a gesture so like a house cat that it still made her smile despite its familiarity. Inside the cabin, Morgan heard her satellite phone ringing. Excuse me, she told the jaguar, which settled on the porch floor with regal patience. The call was from Olivia, who was in New York presenting their heavily edited findings to the scientific community. They had all agreed to keep the full truth secret. The world wasn't ready to know about aliens or telepathic jaguars. How's it going? Morgan asked. Better than expected, Olivia replied. Her voice sounded tired but excited. The radiation readings we documented have convinced most people that something unusual happened in that part of the jungle. We're getting funding for a 5-year study. And the animals? That's actually why I'm calling. The brain scans we did on the monkeys show the changes are permanent but stable. They're not getting any smarter, just like Zara said, but they're definitely not normal either. Morgan glanced out the window at the shadow jaguar waiting patiently on her porch. Define normal, she said with a smile. After the call, Morgan rejoined her unusual companion. The jaguar had brought her something, a small blue flower that grew only near the site of the temple. It dropped the gift at her feet, careful not to crush the delicate petals. Thank you, Morgan said, picking up the flower. It was beautiful, with spirals of tiny blooms that seemed to shimmer in the twilight. The scientists had tested these flowers extensively. They weren't radioactive anymore, just slightly altered in their DNA. a living memorial of what had happened. As darkness fell, Morgan and the Jaguar sat together in comfortable silence. She had stopped trying to give it a name weeks ago. Names were a human need, not the Jaguar's. In her mind, it was simply the shadow, a presence that moved between two worlds, the human world of the research station and the wild world of the jungle. In the distance, thunder rolled across the sky. The shadow's ears twitched at the sound. It stood, stretching its powerful body, then looked at Morgan expectantly. "Going to check on the others?" she asked. The Jaguar blinked slowly. "Yes." After the radiation cleanup, most of the affected animals had retreated deeper into the jungle. They formed a loose community centered around the cleared temple site, where nothing had been rebuilt, but where the memory of what had happened remained strong. The shadow was their leader, or perhaps their ambassador. It moved between their world and the human one, maintaining the bridge that had been formed during those crucial hours. "I'll see you soon," Morgan said as the Jaguar descended the porch steps. It paused, looking back at her with those intelligent blue eyes, then melted into the gathering darkness. Inside her cabin, Morgan added the blue flower to a small collection in a glass jar. She had dozens of them now, each a gift from the jungle delivered by her unlikely friend. On the wall above her desk hung a framed photograph, the research team standing together on their last day at the temple site. Olivia with her arm around Samantha, Paige looking slightly nervous but smiling, Morgan herself with a serious expression, and in the background, half hidden in shadow, the gleam of a pair of blue eyes that most people would miss if they didn't know to look for them. There was a knock at her door. Paige stood outside, clutching a tablet computer. Unlike the others, she had chosen to stay at the research station, helping Morgan document the changed animals' behavior. "You need to see this," she said, handing Morgan the tablet. "It just came through from the satellite team." The screen showed a thermal image of the jungle around the old temple site. Dozens of heat signatures were gathered there, jaguars, monkeys, birds, and other animals, all together in a way that defied natural behavior patterns. "It's the third time this month they've gathered like this," Paige said. "Always at night, always when there's a storm coming. What do you think they're doing?" Morgan studied the image. The animals were arranged in a circular pattern with smaller creatures in the center, and larger ones forming protective rings around them. It reminded her of something, but she couldn't quite place it. "They're having a meeting," she said finally, "or maybe a ceremony. Something important to them." "Should we go observe?" Paige asked eagerly. The scientist in her was always pushing for more data, more understanding. Morgan shook her head. "Not tonight. This is theirs, whatever it is. They'll show us when they're ready." After Paige left, Morgan sat at her desk and opened her journal. She had filled 3 of them already with observations about the shadow jaguar and the other changed animals. Tonight she wrote about the gathering, sketching the circular pattern from the thermal image. As she wrote, her satellite phone chimed with a message. It was from Samantha, who was working with linguistics experts to decipher the temple symbols they had photographed before the Avelians removed everything. "Made a breakthrough," the message read. "The symbols aren't just decoration. They're a writing system, much older than the temple itself. I think the original ship taught it to the first humans who found it. Sending you a preliminary translation of one section." The attached file showed a series of symbols next to Samantha's translation. "When the sky people return, the guardians will rise. Not in war, but in welcome, for the bridge between worlds must stand on both shores. What was broken will be mended. What was forgotten will be remembered." Morgan read it twice, feeling a chill that had nothing to do with the approaching storm. The temple builders had known the Avelians would return. They had prepared for it, creating guardians that would be ready when the time came. The shadow jaguar and the other changed animals weren't accidents or side effects. They were fulfilling a purpose set in motion thousands of years ago. A flash of lightning illuminated the jungle outside her window. In that brief moment, Morgan saw dozens of animals standing at the edge of the trees. Monkeys, birds, small wildcats, even a tapir. All watching her cabin, all with the same blue glow in their eyes, and at their center the shadow jaguar meeting her gaze directly. The flash ended, and darkness returned. When the next lightning came, the animals were gone. Morgan's phone rang again. This time it was Dr. Grayson, the station director. "Morgan, I just got a call from Houston. They're picking up something on the long-range scanners. Multiple objects approaching Earth from deep space. Her heart raced. The Vex? No idea. NASA thinks it's just a meteor shower, but after everything that happened... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. How long? Morgan asked. 3 days until they reach Earth orbit, whatever they are. After they hung up, Morgan stepped outside onto her porch. The storm was directly overhead now, rain pouring down in sheets. Lightning flashed constantly, turning night to day in stroboscopic bursts. She didn't see the shadow jaguar, but she felt its presence nearby, watching, waiting. Is this it? She called out over the storm's noise. Is this what you've been preparing for? No answer came except the crash of thunder. But when she returned inside, a new blue flower lay on her desk that hadn't been there before. The next morning, Morgan hiked to the temple site. The place where the ancient structure had stood was now just a clearing in the jungle. The Avelians had removed every trace of their technology, filling in the excavation with local soil and planting native vegetation. But the animals remembered. Dozens of them were gathered in the clearing, forming the same circular pattern she had seen in the thermal image. As Morgan approached, they parted to create a path for her. The shadow jaguar waited at the center. Beside it stood a smaller jaguar with the same blue eyes, its mate, Morgan had learned. And between them, almost hidden in the tall grass, 3 tiny cubs, the first new generation born after the change. Morgan knelt down to their level, careful to move slowly. The cubs watched her with curiosity but no fear. Their eyes already showed hints of blue. So this is why you've been gathering, she said softly. You're teaching them. The shadow jaguar made a rumbling sound deep in its chest, not a growl but not quite a purr either. A communication. Morgan felt something brush against her mind. Not words exactly, but impressions. Preparation. Waiting. Purpose. The ship's coming. You know about them, don't you? Are they friends or enemies? The plan took shape quickly. Zara used the temple altar to show them what they were facing. By placing her 6-fingered hand on its surface, she activated a hidden control panel. A holographic display appeared above the altar, showing images that made them all catch their breath. The ships coming toward Earth were massive, city-sized vessels bristling with weapons. The beings piloting them looked similar to Zara but taller, their silver skin darker, their eyes cold and calculating. Who are they? Olivia asked. Through their basic communication system, Zara explained that these were the Vex, a splinter faction of her own people who had left centuries ago. While the Avelians believed in observation and peaceful contact, the Vex conquered and enslaved. They used the radiation from crashed ships to prepare planets for invasion, turning the local wildlife into foot soldiers. So the animals aren't the enemy, Samantha said. They're just being used, Zara nodded. She pointed to her ship, then to the temple altar, making a cutting motion across her throat. Both radiation sources needed to be neutralized to close the beacon, calling the Vex to Earth. How do we do that? Paige asked. Zara showed them. The leaked radiation could be contained using a combination of elements, some from her ship, others found naturally on Earth. She needed clay from the riverbed, certain plants with high mineral content, and most importantly, water from a specific thermal spring that ran beneath the temple. While Olivia and Samantha went with Zara to gather these materials, Morgan and Paige stayed at the temple with the shadow jaguar and the other affected animals. To their surprise, the creatures seemed eager to help, bringing them small fragments of the ancient ship's core that they had collected over time. They know something's wrong, Morgan said, watching a monkey place a glowing blue stone at her feet. They're changing, but they're still connected to Earth. They don't want these Vex creatures here any more than we do. The shadow jaguar stayed closest to Morgan. It followed her like a giant house cat, its powerful muscles rippling under midnight fur. When she sat to rest, it lay beside her, close enough that she could feel its warmth. I never thought I'd be sitting next to a jaguar that could kill me with one swipe, she told Paige with a nervous laugh. My grandmother would say I've been blessed by the jungle spirits. Paige was examining the temple walls, photographing the strange symbols carved into the stone. Your grandmother might be right. Look at these carvings. They show humans communicating with animals. And here a big cat that looks just like our jaguar friend, helping people fight off what look like invaders from the sky. Morgan joined her, studying the ancient images. This has happened before, she realized. Maybe not exactly the same, but something similar. And humans and animals worked together then too. The jaguar made a soft sound, almost like a purr, but deeper. It nudged Morgan's hand with its massive head. I think it wants me to touch the altar, Morgan said. She approached the glowing structure cautiously. The jaguar followed, its blue eyes intent. Morgan placed her hand on the altar's surface. Immediately, images flooded her mind, but not the same ones Zara had shown them. These were older memories, stored somehow in the temple itself or perhaps in the jaguar's mind. She saw the first ship crash, thousands of years ago, saw the local people find it, not understanding what it was but sensing its power, saw them build the temple around it, learning to use small pieces of its technology. And she saw the animals changing, slowly over generations growing more intelligent, forming a bond with the humans who tended the temple. But then new humans came, conquerors with steel weapons and diseases that decimated the temple keepers. The knowledge was lost. The animals retreated deep into the jungle, carrying what fragments of the ship they could save, waiting, watching, remembering. Morgan pulled her hand away, gasping. They've been guardians, she said. All this time they've been protecting us from what's up there. She looked at the jaguar with new respect. And now they need our help to do it again. By the time Olivia, Samantha, and Zara returned with the materials, the sun was setting. They had less than 2 hours before the Vex ships would be close enough to detect Earth. Working together, they mixed the clay with crushed plants and water from the thermal spring. Zara added components from her own ship's repair kit. The resulting paste glowed with a soft green light, different from the blue of the radiation. Zara showed them how to apply it, a layer around each radiation fragment, then larger amounts at the core sources in both the temple altar and her ship. The work was messy and difficult, the paste sticking to their hands and clothes, but the scanner showed it was working. The radiation levels were dropping. The shadow jaguar watched intently as Morgan covered the altar with the green paste. When she had finished one side, the great cat moved to the opposite side and, to everyone's amazement, began to help. It used its massive paws to scoop up paste from the container and smear it on the altar, copying Morgan's movements exactly. I can't believe what I'm seeing, Samantha whispered, recording the scene on her phone. It's actually helping us. Other animals joined in, monkeys applying paste to smaller fragments, birds carrying it to hard-to-reach places high in the temple structure. It was as if they all understood what was at stake. As the last light faded from the sky, they finished their work at the temple. The altar was completely covered in the green paste, which had hardened into a shell that contained the radiation. The scanner showed levels dropping rapidly. Now for the ship, Olivia said. They hurried back through the jungle, the shadow jaguar leading the way. Other animals flanked them, not threatening now but protecting. When they reached Zara's ship, they found it surrounded by more changed creatures, all waiting as if they knew what needed to be done. The work went faster this time, with everyone knowing their role. Zara directed them to the most critical areas first: the cracked core chamber, the engine room, the communication array. The green paste sealed everything, containing the radiation and shutting down the beacon that was calling to the Vex. With minutes to spare, Zara checked the scanner one last time. The radiation levels had fallen to nearly normal. The beacon was silent. Earth was safe for now. They all sat around a small fire outside the ship, exhausted but relieved. Through their communication system, Zara told them that her people would send a recovery vessel now that the immediate danger was past. They would remove both ships, clean up any remaining radiation, and leave Earth as they had found it. Except it won't be the same, Morgan said, watching the shadow jaguar stretched out beside her. These animals, they're changed forever. What happens to them? Zara seemed to understand the question. She looked at the jaguar thoughtfully, then made a series of gestures that Samantha interpreted. She says the changes can't be reversed, but they will slow down now that the radiation is contained. The animals won't get any smarter than they already are, but they won't go back to being normal either. So we'll have a bunch of super intelligent animals in the Amazon? Paige asked. That sounds like the setup for a bad sci-fi movie. Olivia shook her head. I think it's more complicated than that. They're not just smarter. They're connected to each other, to the jungle, and now to us. The shadow jaguar raised its head, those blue eyes reflecting the firelight. It seemed to be listening to their conversation, understanding more than any animal should. Morgan reached out slowly, placing her hand on the jaguar's massive head. It leaned into her touch, a gesture so trusting that it brought tears to her eyes. "What if this was always supposed to happen?" she said softly. "What if the radiation didn't just change them? It woke something that was already there. A connection we lost somewhere along the way?" Zara made a series of gestures which Samantha translated with growing excitement. "She says her people have legends about Earth, that it was special, different from other planets they've studied. They thought it was because of humans, but now she wonders if it's the connection between all living things here. She says on her world, they controlled nature so completely that they lost touch with it. Maybe that's why the Vex broke away. They forgot how to connect with anything except through control." The shadow jaguar stood up suddenly, ears perked forward. A moment later they all heard it, a humming sound growing louder. Looking up, they saw lights in the sky, moving too smoothly to be aircraft. Zara's people had arrived. As the lights grew closer, the shadow jaguar pressed against Morgan's side. She felt its fear, not just of the ships but of what they might do. "They won't hurt you," she promised, though she had no way of knowing if that was true. "I won't let them." The ships, 3 of them smaller than Zara's but clearly of the same design, landed in the clearing around the damaged scout vessel. Silver-skinned beings emerged, their movements graceful and precise. They looked at the humans with curiosity, at the gathered animals with surprise. One stepped forward, taller than the others, wearing a uniform covered in symbols that might have been rank insignia. It spoke to Zara in their musical language. She responded, gesturing to the humans and the jaguar, clearly explaining what had happened. The leader looked skeptical. It pointed to the animals, then made a cutting motion similar to the one Zara had used earlier.